It was supposed to be one of those nights people talk about years later. 5 friends, a roaring fire, cheap beer, and a lake deep in the woods, far from any town. Jake was the loud one, always cracking jokes, the kind of guy who made everyone else feel safe just by being there. By the time night settled in, the fire was blazing, sparks floating upward into the black sky. They told stories, laughed too loud, and ignored how the woods seemed to lean closer with every hour. Around midnight, the fire began to die down, and Jake volunteered to grab more wood. He flicked on his flashlight, gave a grin, and said, "Don't let the boogeyman steal my drink while I'm gone." Everyone laughed, and then he stepped into the trees. 10 minutes passed, then 20. At first they joked that he was trying to scare them, but after nearly an hour, unease spread through the group. The woods were too quiet. No crickets, no owls, nothing. 2 of them finally grabbed flashlights and went looking. "Jake, come on, man. This isn't funny." Their voices bounced between the trees, but no one answered. They followed the path toward the lake, their beams sweeping through the brush. The air felt heavy, damp, like it was pressing against their chests. They found nothing. No Jake, no sound, just silence. At sunrise, they called the police. By noon, a search party of locals, rangers, and dogs spread out. That's when they found it. Jake's flashlight, still on, upright in the dirt as if someone had placed it there. Next to it was a trail of footprints leading forward, and then stopping in the middle of an open patch of ground. No broken branches, no drag marks, no struggle, just an end, like he had stepped off the earth. For weeks they searched. Helicopters scanned from above, divers combed the lake, cadaver dogs circled the forest. Nothing. His family begged for answers, his photo plastered across every nearby town. No clues ever came. Jake was gone. Years later, one of the friends, Sarah, swore she returned to the site. The fire pit was still there, moss growing in the stones. At dusk, she walked toward the tree line, the same path Jake had taken. That's when she noticed something. Just past the last row of trees stood a figure, motionless, watching. It wasn't close enough to see clearly, but she knew it wasn't one of her friends. It was tall, too tall, its outline faint against the trees. She raised her phone to snap a picture. The instant the flash went off, the figure vanished. All the photos showed were blurred branches, but she swore she hadn't imagined it. She left that night and never went back. Locals whisper that the woods by the lake have always had a reputation. Hikers disappear. Strange lights flicker between the trees. Campers hear footsteps circling their tents at night, though nothing's there when they check. The stories always end the same way. Silence, then absence. That campsite is abandoned now, reclaimed by weeds and shadows. But sometimes people still wander out there, and every so often someone finds a flashlight standing upright in the dirt, its beam cutting a narrow path into the dark, waiting for the next person who doesn't come back. There's a stretch of farmland outside a small Midwestern town that locals avoid after dark. The corn grows tall there, taller than it should, and it's said the rows shift when no one's looking. Farmers used to lease the land, but none stayed more than a season. Now the field sits abandoned, the stalks still rising high, swaying in the wind like a sea of whispers. Back in the late 90s, 2 teenagers, Eric and Matt, were driving home late one night after a party. It had started to rain, and the back roads were slick, their headlights barely cutting through the fog. As they passed the old field, Eric slowed the car. "Did you see that?" he asked. Matt hadn't, but then the headlights caught something between the rows. A figure, tall, almost unnaturally so, standing perfectly still in the middle of the corn. Its head seemed to tilt as the car rolled by, watching. They argued about turning back, but curiosity won. Eric pulled over to the side of the road, the engine humming in the silence. With only their flashlights, the 2 stepped into the field. The corn was wet from the rain, slapping against their shoulders as they pushed through. The further they walked, the quieter the world became, as if the sound of the rain itself was being swallowed. Then they heard it. Footsteps, not behind them, not in front, but all around, circling just out of sight. They froze. Eric whispered, "Hello?" No answer. Just the crunch of wet soil under something heavy. When their lights finally caught movement, it wasn't what they expected. The stalks bent inward ahead of them, folding as if something massive was pushing through. But when the shape came into view, it didn't look right. Too tall, too thin, its arms brushing the tops of the corn. They never saw its face, just the outline of something watching, waiting. They bolted back to the car. Eric fumbled with the keys, hands shaking, while Matt swore he saw it standing at the edge of the field, closer now, inches from the road. As soon as the engine roared to life, they sped off, not daring to look back. The next morning, Eric told his parents. They brushed it off as drinking, teenage nonsense. But that week, Eric stopped showing up to school. His mother said she last saw him heading out for a late-night drive, muttering about proving he wasn't crazy. His car was found 2 days later, parked neatly by the edge of the cornfield. The driver's side door hung open. Inside was his flashlight, still on, beam pointing toward the rows. Eric himself was never found. Matt refused to talk about that night for years. When he finally did, he admitted something he'd never told anyone. As they drove away just before the car picked up speed, he had glanced back. The figure hadn't stayed in the field. It was standing in the middle of the road, taller than the corn itself, watching them vanish into the distance. To this day, the field is avoided. Farmers say the soil there won't grow anything but corn, no matter what seeds they plant. Travelers on foggy nights report seeing shapes between the stalks, just standing, silent. Some claim to hear footsteps keeping pace with their car as they pass by, though nothing's ever there. But every once in a while, a car gets found abandoned at the roadside. Driver's door open, headlights still on, pointed straight into the corn. On a jagged stretch of coastline in Maine stands Blackwater Point Lighthouse. Built in the late 1800s, it was meant to guide ships away from the reefs that claim dozens of vessels. The light no longer shines, decommissioned decades ago, but the tower still looms above the waves, its paint peeling, windows broken, the stairs rusting away inside. Locals say the last keeper never left. His name was Samuel Lowe, a man who lived alone in the tower for nearly 30 years. In 1923, during a brutal storm, a supply ship meant for him never made it. When rescuers arrived days later, they found the lighthouse empty. The door was wide open, the lantern room abandoned, the logs stopping mid-sentence. Samuel Lowe was never seen again. Since then, stories have spread. Fishermen swear they sometimes see the light flicker to life on stormy nights. Though the lamp hasn't worked in decades, hikers claim to hear footsteps pacing the spiral stairs, echoing through the empty tower. Some even say a man's voice whispers warnings in the fog, urging them to stay away from the rocks. In the early 2000s, a group of college students decided to spend the night there for fun. They brought flashlights, cameras, and sleeping bags, joking about meeting the ghost of old Sam Lowe. At first, it was just a thrill, the thrill of trespassing somewhere forbidden, laughing as the waves slammed against the cliffs below. But after midnight, things changed. One of them, a girl named Rachel, swore she heard footsteps above them, circling the lantern room. When they checked, the room was empty. The air was freezing, their breath visible in the beam of their flashlights. Back downstairs, they tried to brush it off, until the heavy iron door slammed shut on its own. The sound echoed like thunder through the tower. They panicked, scrambling for the exit, but the door wouldn't budge. Something was holding it closed. Then from the top of the stairs, they heard a man's voice. Calm, low. "Get out!" The group fell silent. No one moved. The words came again, louder this time. "Get out!" Suddenly, the door flew open with such force it nearly tore from its hinges. They didn't wait to question it. They ran out into the night, stumbling through the rocks until they reached their car. None of them ever went back. Rachel later admitted she was the last one through the door. And as she turned back, just before escaping, she swore she saw him standing at the top of the stairs. A tall man in a keeper's coat, lantern in hand, watching silently as they fled. To this day, locals refuse to go near Blackwater Point at night. They say the ghost of Samuel Lowe isn't violent, but protective, forever guarding the cliffs and reefs, warning travelers of the danger he himself never escaped. But others tell a darker version. They say he isn't warning anyone at all. He's luring them inside, keeping them trapped in the tower, just as the sea once kept him. Whatever the truth, one thing remains constant. Whenever a storm rolls in, the light atop Blackwater Point flickers faintly to life, sweeping across the black waves, guiding or warning. It depends on who you ask. At the far edge of town, hidden behind thick weeds and broken fences, stand the remains of the Ashford house. The farmhouse is just a skeleton now, its roof collapsed, its walls leaning like they're ready to fall. But behind it, half covered in moss, sits the one thing that never crumbled, the old stone well. People in town don't go near it. They whisper about it instead. Kids dare each other to get close, but even the bravest never lean too far over the rim. The story goes back to the 1930s. The Ashfords lived there with their 3 children. Their youngest, Clara, was 7 years old when she vanished. She had been playing outside one evening, chasing her cat across the yard. She never came back inside. The family searched the fields, the woods, every corner of the farm, but Clara was gone. Neighbors claimed they heard the mother screaming near the well that night, her voice raw from calling Clara's name. Some said she swore she heard faint crying rising up from the dark water, though no body was ever found. Clara's disappearance broke the family. Within a few years, the farm was abandoned, left to rot under the weight of silence. That's when the rumors began. Teenagers who snuck out there in the 1960s said they heard whispers if they leaned too close. Others felt something icy brush against their hands, as if fingers were reaching up. A few even swore they saw movement in the water. Ripples, shapes, a pale face looking up at them, before vanishing in the dark. The strangest case happened in 1998. 2 local boys brought a camcorder to the site, laughing as they dared each other to peer inside. They filmed for almost an hour, daring, joking, dropping pebbles down. That tape was later found in their abandoned car on the side of the highway. The boys themselves were never seen again. On the tape's final minutes, just before the footage cut to static, the camera tilted toward the well. Something pale and wet was climbing out. Others who have visited describe smaller but no less disturbing moments. Flashlights flicker and die as soon as they shine down into the shaft. Phones drain to 0 battery within seconds. The air turns colder, heavy, as if the ground itself is breathing. One hiker claimed he saw a tiny hand resting on the rim, the fingers dripping with water. When he blinked, it was gone. And then there are the photographs. A man passing through town in 2010 stopped by the well at dusk and took a picture. Later, reviewing it, he noticed something no one else was supposed to see. Behind the well stood a small girl in an old-fashioned dress, her skin so pale it nearly glowed. Her eyes were shadows, her mouth open in a silent scream. When he returned to the site the next day, the grass around the well was flattened, like someone had been standing there. People believe Clara never left, that whatever happened to her tied her to that spot. They say she still waits in the darkness below, crying, reaching, desperate to pull someone down with her. On still nights when the wind dies and the fields fall silent, the well seems to breathe. And if you dare to lean close enough, you might hear it. Not water, not wind. A child's voice, faint and broken, calling for help, begging you to come closer, and if you listen too long, you just might. It was just after midnight when I left work. The highway stretched endlessly in front of me, cutting through farmland and patches of forest. I rolled the windows down a little, hoping the cool air would help me stay awake. For a while it was peaceful, the only sound the hum of my tires and the occasional gust of wind rattling the cornfields. Then I saw them, headlights in my rearview mirror. At first I didn't think much of it. Highways weren't mine alone. But after a few minutes, I noticed something strange. The car wasn't passing me. No matter how much I slowed or sped up, it stayed the same distance behind me, as if whoever was driving was copying my every move. I switched lanes, So did they. My stomach dropped. Maybe it was just coincidence, I told myself. But when I slowed near an exit, the headlights slowed too. I pressed the gas again, and they matched me perfectly. I couldn't see the driver, just the blinding glow of their beams filling my mirror. I reached for my phone and tried to call a friend, but the signal died the second I pressed call. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Out here, cell service was practically non-existent. The car crept closer. My mirrors were flooded with white light, and I couldn't make out anything beyond the glare. My heart was hammering. I turned down a narrow county road, hoping to lose them. The blacktop stretched into darkness, flanked by rows of corn towering over the car. The stalks swayed in the night breeze, their shadows sliding across my windshield like skeletal fingers. But the car followed. I pressed harder on the gas. The corn blurred past me, the road twisting beneath my tires. My chest ached from holding my breath. No matter how fast I went, the headlights clung to me. Up ahead I saw it, a faint glow, then the flash of red and blue lights, a police roadblock. Relief surged through me so fast I almost cried. Finally, I slammed the horn, flashing my brights, desperate to get their attention. The officers looked up, startled as I barreled toward them. I slowed just enough to swerve through, crashing past the tape. My tires screeched as I came to a stop on the other side. Heart pounding, I pointed back at the road behind me, shaking, trying to explain what had happened. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, the road was empty, the car was gone. The officers ran back, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. They searched the stretch of road. Nothing, no car, no tire marks, no sound of an engine disappearing into the night. It was like no one had ever been behind me at all. I couldn't sleep for days after. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those headlights burning into my mirrors, steady, unblinking, relentless. Even now, months later, I can't drive alone at night without glancing behind me. Most times there's nothing there, but sometimes on the darkest, emptiest stretches of road, I swear I see them again. Just a faint pair of headlights in the distance, always the same distance away, never closer, never gone.